I wonder if they're all going to vote for him this week. We'll see.
We will see, and I'm not sure if it's kind of a signed, sealed and delivered thing that football people around Ireland are actually in huge support of Sheahan Ross. Time will tell if that's the case or not, but we've seen it yesterday. Basketball Ireland not happy. It was only a matter of time before somebody came out and voiced their disquiet with the bailout. And we let's call it what it is. It's a bailout for the FAI here. There were people who were going to be annoyed by this. Basketball Ireland have a very recent history of where a similar bailout would have helped hugely. It would have saved an international team, a national team. Like, people stopped playing the game.
It would have saved jobs.
It would have saved jobs.
It would have saved jobs. That's the key thing. I think that, like, I think the FAI employs 200 people. I think Basketball Ireland had like something around 25, 26. The safeguarding of those jobs was hugely important, and for the football industry in Ireland. The football industry is actually a medium-sized industry that could be a much bigger industry if it was run and managed properly and given some support. So I think Basketball Ireland have a point here. Mm-hmm. I think that they definitely have a point, that there has been a complete difference in how they were treated because they're not politically powerful the way the FAI ended up eventually becoming politically powerful. And this is a point Brawley always makes about how successful the GAA in the north were about lobbying for funding, and how every club in the 6 counties has this amazing floodlights, all paid for by the British lottery grants, and how there should be a lobbyist in the Dáil on behalf of the GAA. I think that the wielding of political power for sports organisations isn't necessarily something that we should be welcoming. I think that they should all be treated equally, as opposed to who can lobby the best, right? But it's clear that the FAI eventually got their lobbying around, and it's clear that they found a precise moment in time where Sheahan Ross and Brendan Griffin wanted to be on the news as often as possible, and the best way to do that in the build-up of an election cycle was to drag this thing out and make it flare up and have these set pieces out in front, and to be seen to be, oh, we've done stuff, look at us, we've rowed to the rescue, we've saved these jobs, we've saved Irish football, when in all essence that should all have been done behind closed doors. I think Irish football did need to be saved, but I also think that Basketball Ireland have a point, and you can be sure that the GAA and the IRFU are lobbying behind closed doors, going, where's our money, lads? Where's our money?
Now, Basketball Ireland would argue that the IRFU and the GAA would be in a similar boat to the FAI, that they're seen as heavy hitters, that they will always get their way if they're in a spot of bother. Now,
maybe they're the good brother who's toiling in the fields, weather beaten.
There are 3 prodigal sons, possibly. Maybe
no, they're the good brothers. The prodigal son is the
Rugby and the GAA haven't gone and partied.
Exactly.
Yet. Yeah. They can do, though, because they've got a stencil here of how to recover from that. You can look at the Basketball Ireland situation and say, well, they didn't spend the money where they were supposed to spend it, and therefore government money was pulled from Basketball Ireland. Fair enough. But then you would expect that standard then to be maintained and used when it came to a similar situation, which is sort of what the FAI was. That, we've been funding this organisation, we're not happy with how it's been run, therefore we're going to cut the funding. And that's what happened. But then it was not only a U-turn on that, they're going to inject a lot of cash now to keep it afloat and keep it going forward, which I think is the right thing to do. But as you say, Basketball Ireland should have probably got the same privilege.
Yeah, and maybe Basketball Ireland, it's one of those sleeping giants of Irish sport where we are kind of the perfect country for basketball. With indoor arenas, bad weather over the summer, over the winter. GAA clubs actually would benefit from it. There's an opportunity for them. We're going to hear from Burn to Burn in a couple of minutes' time, unless you've one final point to make.
Just when you look back in the story, the whole initiative that was supposed to get all this funding, that didn't get all the funding within Basketball Ireland, to get hoops and all these halls around Ireland, sounded like a fantastic initiative.
Yeah.
I'm sure some of it was rolled out, but I don't know, there was clearly a very, very good idea there before things went wrong for Basketball Ireland.
No, they definitely have got their house in order, and they deserve more funding. 7:40 this morning, a quick update on the sports news from overnight. Former Manchester United defender headed Liverpool into the 5th round of the FA Cup last night. Roshan Williams' comical second-half own goal gave a youthful Liverpool side a 1-0 win over League One Shrewsbury at Anfield. I didn't see any of this. It wasn't on TV. Obviously, it wasn't because Liverpool were playing their kids. Do we know if the Skype machine was working at half-time? Do we know if Jurgen Klopp teleported himself. Was there even a hologram of him in the dressing room at half-time going, yes, lad. What's he saying?
Yeah, James Milner made it to the game last night.
Good man. You see, that's exactly what you would expect. James Milner, stand-up guy. Liverpool will travel to Chelsea in the 5th round. Newcastle going to be away to West Brom in round 5. Alain Saint-Maximin scored 4 minutes from the end of extra time to give Steve Bruce's side a 3-2 win away to Oxford. Big news from the night, though. Wayne Rooney will welcome his former side, Man United, to Pride Park in round 5. He scored from the spot in a 4-2 win for Derby at home to Northampton. Reading at home to Sheffield United in the 5th round. They beat Cardiff on penalties. That one finished 3-3 after extra time. So a wild night in the FA Cup. And Birmingham set up a 5th round trip to Leicester, having beaten Coventry on penalties at St Andrews. The 5th round lineup will be completed tonight. Spurs entertain Southampton, while the winners of that at home in the 5th round to Norwich. Kick-off at White Hart Lane is 7:45. Max Deegan is in the Ireland squad as he was named yesterday. He's among the replacements for the Six Nations game against Wales. He's going to make his debut when called upon. Deegan comes into the matchday squad replacing Caelan Doris effectively after he was ruled out with a head injury. CJ Stander starts the game at 8 and Peter O'Mahony starts at 6 with Josh van der Fleer at 7. Disappointment in snooker for Anthem's Mark Allen at the World Grand Prix last night. A first round exit at the hands of Liang Wenbo with the Chinese player a 4 frames to 2 winner in Cheltenham. Liang plays Ronnie O'Sullivan in round 2 tonight. Here's what's coming up on the show this morning at 7:41. Bernard O'Byrne coming your way at 7:45. Top 5 stories of the day that we're covering here on Off the Ball and on offtheball.com. From 8 o'clock, Jonathan Davies, the Welsh Rugby League legend, Rugby Union legend, is going to talk to us about Andy Farrell and what the expectations are in Wales. Ireland were 4-point favourites yesterday for that game, which makes absolutely no sense in the world. Ireland 4-point favourites against a team that we got hammered by in the Six Nations last year. Graham Hunter's going to join us at 8:45. Weird stuff going on at Barcelona overnight. I don't know if you all saw this, but Eric Abidal accused the players of downing tools and getting the Ernesto Valverde sacked. Leo Messi had a go at him. So who knows where this is going. Maybe potential divorce into the future. We'll see. Power rankings at 9 o'clock, 9:15. Football coming your way. Time now for the papers.
OTB AM.
Right, I will start here with the Irish Times. More inclusive review readies Ireland for reigning champions. As Declan Kidney was wont to say, and he wasn't alone, you learn more from your defeats than you do from your wins. By extension, therefore, perhaps you learn more from hard-earned wins than those easily accrued, is the opening to his piece. Henderson saying there's a different mentality around the place. Fear no longer motivates this team, according to Henderson and Healy. It's Gavin Comiskey's piece. And there's a Max Deegan piece review as well. Gordon Darcy says Farrell's gamble on Murray may not pay off, so he is not in the Murray camp at the moment.
Back page of the London Times this morning is Eddie Jones saying beware of niggly Scots. Eddie Jones very much at it again this week. Palace, meanwhile, could lose Hodgson. He could leave Crystal Palace at the end of the season unless he's given assurances over the club's transfer plans. And women's surge catches out FA. This is quite a story. Nearly 1 million women and girls started playing football after last summer's World Cup, and the FA says it cannot cope with the demand.
That's interesting, isn't it?
Because it's the Phil Neville bounce.
It's like, but it's the opposite of what we're told about the Olympic Games, where levels don't go up, participation levels don't go up. Maybe because of saturation in those sports, but there is massive growth potential in women's football. I kind of feel the same about basketball in Ireland, to be honest, but like it'll be interesting to see if that persists and if they can somehow find a way to do it. They should just take money from the Premier League. Like, give us money for this. Irish Independent back page, Basketball Ireland seek 1.5 million boost after FAI deal. So specifically, they're looking for more cash. He's looking for $1 million over 3 years to cover the expense that they had in the restoration of a 500 grand to improve the National Stadium. National Stadium, I don't know if you've been in it recently, it's in a bit of a state compared to, like I remember the first time going there as a kid and going, wow, this place is absolutely amazing. And then last time I was there, I was like, whoa, what happened? This is not the field of dreams that I remembered from 20 years ago. So, like, it's great that they have a purpose-built facility, but they could do with a refurb to help for, you know, the streaming of games, to help with the press box, to help with the type of stuff that would happen if it was there. More people might use it. So, what's this picture here? From All-Ireland Talent Show winner to Galway football star, Sean Mulcairn pictured the banjo at the front, and his brothers Eoin and Pádraig being congratulated by Grunge Show and Dahi Shea after winning the inaugural series of the 2009 All-Ireland Talent Show.
Do you not remember that?
What a pick. No, I do not remember that.
Yep. I had no recollection of it either until I was reminded of it at the game on Saturday night. The Mulcairn brothers, the 3 kids from the Aran Islands, I think, all killing it on stage and went all the way to win the All-Ireland Talent Show, which was obviously Ireland's answer to Britain's Got Talent at the time.
And what happened to the show? I don't...
So you had, I actually remember very clearly, you had the North versus the South versus the East versus the West.
All right.
Was there a Dublin one as well? I can't remember. Was there 4 or 5 judges?
And Dublin as a province.
You had like John Creedon as one of the judges. I can't remember. I think he represented the South. Oh no, sorry, he represented the West. Dahi O'Shea was representing the South. So the Mulcairn brothers were one of the 3 or 4 acts that would represent the West, and they went all the way and they won it. And this guy's the full back for Galway and did a pretty good job on David Clifford at the weekend. Right.
That's great. We have plenty of dog in the pack. Farrell rejects O'Driscoll criticism, so Andy Farrell is not happy with what Brian O'Driscoll was saying last week. He doesn't agree with him. I don't, actually. There was plenty said about CJ Stander as well last week. He gave him man of the match performance. Plenty of dog in him. He was part of that team that there was no dog in. I saw some good reactions from people, so Brian O'Driscoll got the reaction he wanted.
Exactly. Back page of the Mirror is Greel Deal. United to make Villa star Jack their top target, as mentioned, of course, by Daniel Harris on OTB AM yesterday. Wish Shrew were here, Klopp, as Liverpool beat Shrewsbury 1-0. Late Saint saves Tunis, Newcastle beat Oxford 3-2. Harry may be back. May is the pun there because he could be back for a couple of games at the end of the season, while VAR is here to stay. And Farrell has a dogged reply. That's the more dog required in Ireland. Like, what is dog? What for you constitutes dog? Is it cynicism?
No,
is it aggression?
It's not cynicism. It's not cynicism. It's the opposite. It is aggression. It is aggression within the rules, right? And it is so. There's
a healthy dose of ignorance, says Tommy.
Pig ignorance, but then we're introducing so pigedness and doggedness are the same thing. I think it's maul defence, right? It comes down to it. Can you defend a maul properly? If you can, your team has dog, and they're going to be able to. I am the one who knocks, right? That's the You would say there's a doggedness in that.
Well, if you're defending a maul, you'd suggest the other team are knocking.
I mean,
but you're certainly. I'm the one who doesn't answer the door.
Anyway, need to get that cultural reference correct. But we had this conversation. Tolan was like, "Oh, look, are you talking about gouging? We used to go to France in the 90s, and you need goggles, basically. Was that doggedness? No, that's not what we're talking about. We're not talking about cheating or breaking people's arms. It's like smashing them when they're there to be smashed. Playing a little bit on the edge, but legally, mostly.
So, maul defence, line speed equals doggedness.
Not even line speed. I would expect line speed. I would expect a team of lightweights to have line speed. But we're gonna win the collisions. We're gonna smash you, and if we can't smash you, we're gonna chop you down, and we're gonna get up quickly, and we're gonna scream at each other for that, and we're gonna encourage each other. That's what I would say is doggedness. So Martin Brownie's piece today, just to follow on from the basketball. GAA head the list facing a fleecing after FAI bailout. He's assuming that it's a zero-sum game and that the money going to the FAI has not been found from some other pot, that actually it's coming from a GAA pot and other sports pots. So this is the type of thing which will be red rag to the GAA bull around the country. In the end, the people will pay, full stop. They always do, full stop. That's particularly the case with government and banks, full stop. And when it involves both in the same deal, the only question is the amount.
Full stop?
Full stop. As for the government bailout, Minister Ross has bizarrely attempted to turn it into a good news story. At the beginning of February 2020, we can celebrate in moderation, he wrote. Celebrate what? Even in moderation, that under the unsuspecting noses of his department in Sport Ireland, one of the country's major sporting organisations landed the taxpayer with a massive bill. Yes, Minister, let's raise a glass to that. Full stop. Cheers, full stop. He's got a point. This is the thing. This is what's going to happen now.
Is it a zero-sum game, though?
Ultimately, all of the money that the government has is essentially, it goes up a bit depending on corporation tax take, or it goes down a bit depending on corporation tax take, and whether or not we're going to take the Apple money. I mean, we could just take the 17 billion that's sitting there and account for us going, geez, I could use that, that's coming. I know they might not be too happy about it, but we could come to a deal with them.
The National Apple Basketball Arena, Tala.
Hey, the whatever their latest thing is, powered by, what's the fancy lens they have, or the fancy view that you spend an extra grand for?
I can't remember. the Siri Davin stand.
Yeah, exactly.
Like that.
Siri, tell me who will win the football championship this year.
Exactly.
Kerry will win.
The first smart stadium in all of Ireland. Great. Back page of the Irish Daily Star is the Greal deal. Solskjaer wants United summer move for Jack. Child's play for young Reds as they beat Shrewsbury yesterday, while FAI staff to meet Mac. This is Mick McCarthy's senior Ireland squad. Could meet next month with FAI staff in a show of support for the association's beleaguered employees. Nigel Farage has done football in Ireland a huge favour, says Mark McAdam. Football in Ireland has found a most unlikely champion in Mr Brexit himself, Nigel Farage. Up to last Friday night, British clubs were allowed to sign EU-born players from the age of 16. Now they must wait until players from EU member countries are 18 to sign them, which will have massive implications for the development of players in this country. This was witnessed this week when England actually blocked a top club from signing an exciting Irish prospect as he was under 18. So basically more Irish players being able to be kept in Ireland is no bad thing, or they could go to other EU countries, which may also be no bad thing. Perhaps England isn't always the ideal scenario early in your career. And then the other story is the rugby at the back of the Star. Andy sticks to the plan.
Telegraph, friends reunited. Rooney wins another tilt at United. I'm really looking forward to that game, actually, because there's a chance that maybe Wayne Rooney kills Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. Oh, that would be amazing. An Oxford drama. Newcastle are taking extra time, obviously an early edition that we get here. And the kids are all right. Reds finally see off Shrewsbury. The main story there is back to earth with a thump. World champions are brought crashing down as South Africa outclass England to win by 7 wickets. There's a lot of crossover in the Grealish story as well. It's two the same.
Yeah. Back page of The Guardian is an interview with Richard Masters, who is obviously the successor to Richard Scudamore. New Premier League chief says betting sponsorship will continue, so there won't be any ban on betting companies sponsoring on the shirt of Premier League sides. The kids are all right, is the headline from Anfield last night. VAR denies Shrewsbury opener before a horror own goal puts Liverpool through. Overall, this is a fairly embarrassing sequence of results for Everton, who got smashed by these kids in one game, whereas Shrewsbury managed to hold on for 180 minutes and only concede 1 goal.
Shrew lucky boys. Top of the morning to you, maybe. Liverpool 1, Shrewsbury 0, and keep calm and harry on. Jose Kane's back for last 2 games, so mostly important for England, maybe I suspect, as opposed to Spurs. And time to fight for the right. So Andy Farrell says we've got to front up against Wales to earn the right to go wide.
Back page of the Irish Daily Mail is we are ready. Farrell upbeat ahead of clash with champions. And no Jurgen, no problem.
The Racing Post, it's not a surprise the Dublin Racing Festival has succeeded in creating a sense of occasion. That's Alan Sweetenham's piece on that one. And tributes flow following the death of Gold Cup winner Robert Alner. We've got the Examiner for you on PDF as well. Heavy workload, Donal Lenihan's set-piece maul and contact area on Farrell's lengthy to-do list. And Kieran Shannon states neglect of Irish basketball jeopardises another golden generation. So Kieran Shannon, who obviously knows a lot about basketball in Ireland, is writing about that on the back page of the Examiner today. And beating down will be huge in promotion chase. McCarthy, that's Ronan McCarthy, Cork boss there, talking about the Cork down game. And that's your Irish News back page headline. Do we have an offtheball.com for you this morning? We don't. We'll bring you that a little bit later on. So 7:53 here. Time for us to get to our top story this morning. Basketball Ireland CEO Bernard O'Byrne joins us on OTB AM next.
OTB AM. This is OTB Sports Radio.
Now, the Board of Basketball Ireland issued a hard-hitting statement about the FAI's recent funding from the government and Sport Ireland. I'm delighted to say the Chief Executive of Basketball Ireland, Bernard O'Byrne, is with us this morning to talk to us about it. Bernard, good morning to you.
Good morning.
Maybe we'll start at the very beginning in terms of the issue that Basketball Ireland had back in the middle of the first decade of this century. So around about 2008, Basketball Ireland had their funding withdrawn and ended up being fined. Can you just explain to us what the background to that occurrence was?
Yeah, Basketball Ireland had received grants from the department which essentially were to be spent on capital expenditure on basketball hoops around the country or whatever, and the management at the time instead ploughed that money, or a substantial amount of it, into revenue items such as hiring development officers and whatever. So basically the grants were misspent, but within the game, but still were misspent. So this came to light, and everybody was extremely unhappy, and Basketball Ireland held up their hand. In addition to which, Basketball Ireland were revealed internally to have their own bank debt of 1.2 million. So the total burden, if you like, was of the order of 2.5 million. So the government, the department at the time, initially demanded full repayment of the grant. That was negotiated over time to a substantial fine that was imposed. But crucially, there was a set of consequences to all of that, which clicked in through 2007, 8, 9, which included the total withdrawal of our international squads, reducing our staff from 27 people to 12, a £500,000 grant that had been given for refurbishment of the National Basketball Arena was withdrawn overnight and never reinstated. And I suppose crucially, we were told that until we cleared our debt situation with the banks, etc., that we would not be allowed back into the capital programme. So it was a huge financial burden, and I think for quite a few weeks, Basketball Ireland teetered on the brink of extinction. But a rescue plan was put in. I suppose I was part of that. I was brought in 2010. And about a year ago, we were able to declare that we had cleared all our debts. We had turned the ship around, if you like. But it was a really hard period for everybody. So I think, that's the background.
So it started in 2007. That was the first year. So this wasn't...
Yeah, 2007, 2008, yeah.
All right. And so the fines start happening at that point, and then obviously the bust hits. So you find yourselves as a sports organisation not really in a position to raise money from external sources, and then it takes the best part of a decade, from 2010 to 2019, to declare yourselves debt-free.
Correct.
Right, so fairly punitive.
Yeah, punitive, but I would say that we held our hands up. Our management lacked governance, I should say. We made mistakes, so. In a way, we had a very weak hand to play, and so we played it as best as we could, which actually was quite well, but it all hinged, everything, let's say, that myself and the various boards over the last 10 years have done has hinged on the basketball community putting their hands into their pockets to pay for the international programs, to pay for the reduction of the debt gradually over those 10 years. So it was all on the members, it was all on the clubs to get us out of the hole. So that brings us kind of up to date, where we were horrified to see that for similar situations there is a total double standard here, and how could that happen? In a way, especially since our, the amounts of money we were talking about were minuscule compared to what had happened out in Abbottstown. So I suppose what brought it all to a head as well was we had our cup finals there last weekend out in the arena, so we would have had about 15 or 17,000 people coming through the arena for the 9 finals, and inevitably there was chat both with board members and with myself from the basketball community, and there was a palpable anger at what had happened. And I think on Monday night at our board meeting, we just said, well, are we just going to sit back and just be the quiet, compliant boys in the corner and accept the odd tap in the back for doing a great job? Or are we going to stand up for our community? And that's why we issued the statement yesterday morning. Why
do you think that the FAI received a different hearing from what Basketball Ireland would have received back in 2007?
Well, first of all, let me say that there is no antipathy here on our behalf to the FAI. We compliment their negotiating people or whatever. They've done a great job, and we wish them all the best. I read an article yesterday by somebody, I don't know who it was, who says that successive governments are weak with the strong and strong with the weak, meaning that I think the top 3 are treated very, very differently to all the other 50 national governing bodies. We can be dictated to, we can be instructed, etc., etc. We don't have any great cards to play back. Whereas the 3 big organisations, rightly so because of their numbers and, the finances we're talking about or whatever, they are strong and they have strong lobbying facilities and whatever. So they're completely treated differently. And I think that just is self-evident.
You say it's a double standard, Bernard. At the same time, there is a huge disparity in the finances available to the government in 2007 as opposed to now. But do you think if you were around the clock and the financial crisis hit the FAI in 2007, 2008, 2009, they still would have got a bailout, even though it's not a bailout, despite the government's finances at the time?
Sorry, do I think the FAI would have got a bailout?
If they had their troubles during the financial crash?
I certainly think they wouldn't have been allowed to go to the wall under any circumstances. Neither of the top three, and of course the other two are not in any trouble at all. But I can't see any government or any bank, driving the FAI into liquidation and insolvency and all of that. I think on the day that the scale of debt was revealed, I predicted that there would be a rescue package, and it hasn't taken very long for that to come out. So, there's no way I personally or we in Basketball Ireland, or I think nearly any other sport around the country, would advocate that they should have been let go to the wall. They were going to be rescued. The form of the rescue was the only thing that was up for discussion.
What role did Sport Ireland play in the administration of the punishment that you guys had? Was it the department or was it Sport Ireland? Are they interchangeable as far as the conversation that we've been having, or were all the dealings with the Department of Sport at the time?
No, we dealt with everybody, and I suppose the point to make about Sport Ireland, with whom we really have an excellent relationship, and Sport Ireland, I think, will tell you, John Tracy will tell you, that they hold up Basketball Ireland as an example to other national governing bodies about how to do governance properly, about how to turn a bad case into a successful case. So we have no problems with Sport Ireland. They can't give us money that they don't get. Annually they get money from the department, from the government, and then they decide who gets what. And we would say that we've been treated fairly by Sport Ireland, both financially and in terms of resources that they make available to us and training that they make available to our staff. So we haven't got the argument there. The argument is even in the department, you would say it's not the decisions that are made in the department. It's the political decisions that are made, which is why meeting the minister or the junior minister and setting out our case was so important to us. And we couldn't get a meeting for the last 18 months. Again, this is the reason for our statement yesterday. We want an assurance from political parties that when the new government is formed, we simply will be allowed to come into a room and set out our case and know that decision makers are listening to us. If they decide that our arguments are illogical or don't stand up, fair enough.
So hang on,
but
sorry.
we at least want to be listened to.
You were trying to get a meeting with Shane Ross or Brendan Griffin for the last 18 months and you couldn't get one?
Correct.
Why would they? Why not?
Well, I'm not the one to ask about that. I have my email chain. The invitations and the requests were acknowledged by their office, and we will get back to you. And silence. Despite a couple of reminders, have you forgotten about this? We just could not get a meeting.
That's remarkable, given how front and centre both of these ministers have been, and Shane Ross has been so vocal about the FAI and how it needed to be saved. It definitely had the air of a minister who would have been looking to hear you out and to hear NGBs out who had those concerns.
Well, look, I'm not going to get personal about this, but I am saying that our first email requesting a meeting was October 2017, a follow-up one in February 2018, and we didn't get to meet either ministers.
Right.
Have you been speaking to other NGBs, Bernard? Have they been in similar situations, requesting meetings with Shane Ross or Brendan Griffin, and are they in a similar state of...
I don't know. I can't speak for anybody else, really. I do meet the various CEOs. We all have similar problems. I'm not sure that they all have problems about meetings. I don't think there's any reason why we would be singled out as... do not meet Basketball Ireland, but I just don't have any information on that. I'm too busy trying to look after Basketball Ireland, without surveying the rest of the NGBs.
Bernard, there's one last thing. Obviously, people are going to wonder if there is any personal animosity on your part between you and the FAI, given how your relationship with the FAI ended all those years ago. Can you just talk to us a bit about that first?
Well, look, anybody who knows me knows that could not and is not even a shred of truth in that. I, born and raised a football person, always have been. I'm still hugely interested in football. Professionally, I'm devoted to basketball now, and I actually love the game. I've grown to love it. But, football is in my blood. I wish them all the best. Some of the people who are around, even around the rescue package, are very, very good friends of mine. So I don't think any football person with any knowledge of the scenario would accuse me of that or suspect that just is not true.
All right, we'll leave it there. Bernard O'Byrne, Chief Executive of Basketball Ireland, thanks very much for joining us this morning.
Thank you very much.
OTB AM on OTB Sports Radio, Ireland's first and only sports radio station.
The Six Nations Championship has arrived, and there's only one place to hear the biggest names in rugby every day of the week.
This is OTB Sports Radio.
Brian O'Driscoll.
The evolution of Ireland probably wasn't to the same degree over that period of time.
Ronan O'Gara.
What is a team player is backing your game plan, but also backing your instinct.
Keith Wood.
We just turf that bloody thing in the bin and never speak of it again.
Alan Quinlan.
I'm kind of sick of listening to him saying, it's because they're the biggest playing pool in the world.
The best analysis from the legends of the game.
OTB Sports Radio.
We'll also have reporters at every match across the men's and women's Six Nations, post-match reaction, and Eoin Sheahan will be meeting the people.
I fully believe that the Irish team lost because they want to go on the sesh in Japan. Sesh! All the way!
That's the Six Nations Championship on OTB Sports Radio.
OTB AM.
6 minutes past 8 this morning. You're very welcome along to OTB AM. If you've just joined us, you can listen to us as a radio show and indeed a radio station on OTB Sports Radio. The best place to do that is on the Go Loud app. Of course, you can stream us on YouTube, Facebook and on Twitter and Periscope every morning. Just follow us on any of those and you can leave a comment for us. You can use the hashtag OTBAM to get involved. Top 5 stories this morning that we're covering. We've already had Bernard O'Byrne, the Chief Executive of Basketball Ireland, on to talk about the statement that they issued yesterday, essentially complaining about the double standards that the government have shown when it comes to how basketball was treated in their time of crisis and how the FAI was treated in their time of crisis. He also made the point that the Minister for Sport did not return a request, didn't reply, did not facilitate a meeting with Basketball Ireland over an 18-month period when they asked on multiple occasions. Neither Shane Ross nor Brendan Griffin were available to meet with Basketball Ireland to hear about their plans for the sport into the future. Liverpool's kids managed to go through against Shrewsbury last night to set up a 5th round tie against Chelsea. Jack Grealish is on the back of all the newspapers. Apparently this is Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's main transfer target when it comes to the summertime for Manchester United. What a transformative signing that might be for them. Andy Farrell. Fun time Andy Farrell. It turns out that Conor Murray referred to the review on Monday morning as being good fun, which I don't think anybody ever described Joe Schmidt's review sessions as. And Leo Messi. Has a bomb gone off in the relationship between Leo Messi and Barcelona, brought about by Eric Abidal, who you would have thought would have been right on the players' sides, but he's been accused of selling out. Abidal's on the board. He's got a relationship with. Is he the technical director? He's head of some kind of. I don't know the exact title, but he's like high up in the club hierarchy, and a club legend, obviously, for recovering from cancer the way he did. And we're going to talk with Graham Hunter like this a little bit later on, get the full details. So rather than me,
Sporting director.
So we'll give you the full details on that. We're going to talk about Andy Farrell here, though. So there's a couple of things. He obviously responded to Brian O'Driscoll. He was asked about it in the press conference. Brian O'Driscoll said there's not enough dog in the pack. And he's going to go, yeah, you're right. There's not enough dog in the pack. Jesus, I mean, I hadn't noticed.
You know what? I'm actually culling the entire pack now.
We're getting the under-21s in and we're going to play them this week. I mean, he's kind of in a difficult scenario there where it's like, yeah. I mean, and yet, when you read the comments, he's kind of agreeing with what O'Driscoll was saying. I'll find that bit if you want to talk a little bit more about.
When you were saying Conor Murray was saying it was good fun, the Monday morning review session.
Yeah.
Now, I want to hear Conor Murray's tone of voice before we can actually conclude that it was good fun.
Yes, it was good fun. There's a gun to my head under the table.
But
2 blinks for save me.
You know the way, say, if you've missed 4 buses going home and it's pissing rain, and you've just had a nightmare of a couple of hours. And somebody asks you, how's that? And you're like, oh, that was great fun.
Is this the night link? Oh, ironic.
Like, is that how he said it? Or is he like, no, it was genuinely good fun, good sport all around,
well, they're
really
all talking,
enjoyable experience?
They're talking about it. So they've changed their training base. They're now at the National Sports Campus in this purpose-built arena, and so the classroom is right beside the pitch. And what Andy Farrell says now, instead of having this big, long review where they talk about stuff, they do a bit of the review, and they go out onto the pitch and they fix what was in the review, and then they go back into the classroom and then they go back out again.
Makes sense.
It makes a lot of sense. Whereas previously it would have been the long review meeting, everybody
double maths.
And exactly, double maths on a Tuesday, last 2 classes before lunch. Everybody's hangry and tired. The heating is up and the windows are closed. Oof. Sine, cosine, tan. Oof. I actually quite enjoyed all those classes.
So did I. I actually found that trigonometry very accessible. But maybe these particular players found something that was that was not so.
And your time begins with an Eoin Sheahan. I actually found trigonometry quite accessible. You got that, Tommy? We clipping that?
It's true. I'm sure this is not
the first time you've blushed in months.
What can I say? You know, I'm proud of my honours maths background. But it makes sense that you would actually go into the classroom and go back out and then go back and forth.
No, you're right.
Like, why this is not some sort of futuristic thinking from a coach.
No, it's just that they have the facility to do it right now.
Oh, so in Carton House, obviously, it was probably a bit away, maybe.
Corner, yeah, and maybe just Joe Schmidt didn't want to do that. He wanted to make sure that everyone was like getting it drilled into them. Henderson says as well that they're not afraid to ask questions now. In the past, maybe if you'd asked questions, people might have wondered if you didn't have all the detail. Now they're like, can you just explain that to me a bit more? So a more open, engaged environment and making the players think for themselves so that when it comes down to the crunch time, they'll actually be conditioned to do so, as opposed to, hey, our plan's not working, what do we do now, coach? Oh, you're up in the stands, you can't tell us what to do. Two bits more from Andy Farrell. If we win a few more collisions and are a bit more accurate winning the race to the breakdown, the creative side will come a bit more. So he's essentially saying we need to establish a platform before we get incredibly creative. And this bit's, sometimes I thought we were too creative. Decision making was a little too expansive sometimes, but that's all a work in progress. These type of things do take time. I'm sure you saw little bits of glimpses of parts of it, but we'll get better. And he said there was plenty said about CJ Stander as well last week. He gave a man of the match performance. There's plenty of dog in them. I saw some good reactions from people. Sometimes they were rightly a bit upset with losing a few collisions. Then we saw a reaction. So, you've got to win those collisions a bit more. The Scots were able to make 8, but maybe that's all Scotland can do. And that's a team who are set up against Ireland to do that. Will the Welsh pack be able to? Yes, they will. Yes, they will be able to do exactly the same thing against us. Right. Rory O'Connor explained why he doesn't like the team picked to face Wales this weekend, in particular the back row. Have a look.
I think Peter O'Mahony's having a mixed, middling year, and I don't like that back row. I would like to move on from that back row. I think I know CJ Stander was man of the match last week, but I prefer him at 6. I prefer Peter O'Mahony at 6. I don't like. I would like a number 8 in the mould of a Doris or a Deegan or a Jamie Heaslip, and we have one of those in the squad who's fit, and he's gone for Deegan on the bench. I think the bolder call would have been to replace Doris with Deegan and to keep O'Mahony on the bench, even though he came in and did quite well. Also, Henshaw for Raki would have been a nice bit of freshness. Now it turns out Will Allison isn't fit. They didn't tell us that yesterday when they were released their injury information, but he's got a calf problem. I would have loved to see Addison come in for Ringrose because I think he's more like for like. I also think Chris Farrell potentially offers a little bit more in terms of his hands and his ability to release players outside him. I just think against a team that held Ireland to no score for 83 minutes last season, that looks a little bit blunt, and I think you've lost one of your key attackers. Again, you're not calling. It's not like we're calling for the under-20s to be put into the team. There's good players in that squad, potentially better players for this task. But he's gone back to, in fairness, a guy who captained the Lions in the first test 3 years ago, and who was the vice captain in that sensational year.
And did make a bit of an impact when he came on.
He did. He was good. Yeah, he was good.
Effectively, he played the whole game.
He was good, but I just don't think he's getting. I think Ireland lost a lot of their carrying game when that back row was in the team.
Yeah, so who was talking about maybe it was Joe made this point in the same thing, that there's a WhatsApp going around of the kids unveiling in Scooby-Doo the Joe Schmidt mask and underneath it it's Andy Farrell, or the Andy Farrell mask and underneath it it's Joe Schmidt. It's like, oh, right, so you picked the same team that we would have. This is the exact same point that we were making yesterday. It's not a very new team, it's a very old team, and Farrell's contention has to be that he can do more with these players, and that the change in attitude is going to unlock something in them that was suppressed for the last 18 months.
And I think that's a fair thing to be going out to achieve. Like, I know people can say, well, they haven't done it over a prolonged period of time, therefore they're not going to be able to do it for the next little while or perhaps ever again, but some people need to look at their age profile. I disagree with that. I think that there is huge potential for there to be an upshot from these players. Like, if you take Rory Best's words when he was speaking at the end of the year, talking about why things have been so badly wrong, like, he spoke about a small bit of a breakdown in how the players interacted with the coach, and the responsibility that was placed on the players. Like, that kind of stopped when you got to the World Cup, by all accounts, by Best's account anyway, it did. Now, he may be kind of, it would probably be in his interest to obviously protect the players and kind of put the blame on the coach. But
he wasn't, but I think he was sharing the blame. Like, they didn't speak up. They're responsible for that. Like, on match day, they're like saying, shut up, stop talking to us. There's too much detail here. We've got this.
Yeah.
That's on them. Like, that's a weakness on their part, I think, and that's what he was saying, in fairness.
Okay, like, it can be seen as a weakness on their part, but that does not suggest that these players are finished or that these players don't have the potential to kind of take a step back and get back to taking control in the dressing room and then find their form again. So all is not lost for a lot of these players, and I think when it came to the back row selection, Andy Farrell's got it right.
Right. I think I disagree, but anyway, will Ireland show more creativity against Wales on Saturday? Here's what Andy Farrell had to say.
Does continuity come at the expense of creativity, or will the message be more creative this weekend?
No, I thought we just need to see the opportunities. You know, I think if we win a few more collisions and a bit more accurate winning the race to the breakdown, I think the creative side will come a little bit more. Sometimes I thought we was too creative. Sometimes, you know, decision making was a little bit too expansive sometimes, but that's all work in progress. Those type of things, they do take time, you know. I'm sure that you saw little bits of glimpses of parts of it, you know, but we'll get better.
What is the collective confidence like, and is it where it needs to be with Wales coming here this weekend?
It's actually great, believe it or not. It is actually great because, I mean, what a position to be in. We've won our first game at home. Some good, some fix-ups. Scotland, you know, I don't think people are giving them the credit that they deserve. I've not seen Scotland play like that for a long time. They were ferocious in all sorts of contact within the game. I thought the set piece was absolutely excellent. They'd be deeply disappointed, I would have thought, because they threw everything at us in that game. So they've a lot to do with it, and we've got to manage that type of situation better as well, and we will do this weekend.
Yeah, that is interesting from Andy Farrell. Something else that Ron O'Gara made the point here on the show during the week as well, that there's a new defence coach in Scotland, that their defensive structure has changed, and that's having an immediate impact in terms of how they approach the collisions and stuff. So we'll see how well Scotland play this week against England. Eddie Jones obviously making usual Eddie Jones noises ahead of that. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But to get to the game at the weekend, I'm delighted to say we have Welsh legend Jonathan Davies with us. Jonathan, good morning to you. How you doing?
Morning, lads. Yeah, all good. All good.
Ireland, with the bookmakers, are 4-point favourites for this game, and for the life of me, I can't really understand why. Last year, Wales absolutely pummeled Ireland in the Six Nations, and the respective paths since have been Wales doing quite well at the World Cup and maybe being a little bit unfortunate not to progress even further, and Ireland having a pretty bad time. I would make Wales quite strong favourites to win the game this weekend.
I think it's home advantage. I think the bookies have gone heavy on the home advantage, and it's very difficult to call. You know, Ireland haven't played particularly well over the last 12 months. You know, I agree with Andy Farrell. I thought that's the best Scotland have played for a long, long time. The one thing that Scotland had to improve was their kind of physicality and defence, and they did that against Ireland. It's and Wales had an easy run out against Italy. So Italy weren't great. They're trying to play a different style with Kana in the midfield. So it'll be an intriguing game, and it's apart from maybe the Grand Slam winning game last year. The Irish provinces and international sides have really bullied the Welsh forward. So it'll be interesting to see what does happen on the weekend and how Wales approach it again.
Well, watching Ireland last weekend, Jonathan, you must be pretty hopeful that they are not going to bully the Welsh pack, particularly in the scrum.
Yeah, I think the Welsh scrum wasn't particularly strong, to be honest. They had a few penalties against Italy, so that's always going to be an interesting battle. And whoever wins that, they're going to try and put pressure on the opposition. So you're going to get field position. I think the kicking game is going to be crucial. So the scrum will become even more important then as well. You see, to get field position. So the try they took was lovely, Johnny Sexton's try. But, it didn't bring Lamore into the game much. Brendan Aki was quiet. So I'm sure that Andy Farrell will have a few tricks up his sleeve, for this weekend. Especially, it's interesting to see if Wales go with North or Tompkins in the centre. If they play George North there, and they'll surely try and expose him.
I mean, look, it'll be interesting to see if we're actually able to expose him in the middle, or if that's one of those things that Pivac is going to hang his hat on. What type of a coach so far? It's one game in. It's the same with us here with Andy Farrell. But what are the trends that you're starting to see that the new Welsh era will be under the new head coach?
Well, as you said, it's very difficult to see. It's so early. But the two games that he's had have been the Barbarians and the Italians at home. So you can't wish for better games than at the start of your of your coaching reign. So for me, you've seen a tinkering of Stephen Jones's approach. They're playing a little bit wider with Tiplick and Ken Owens out there as well. If you look at the Scarlets over the last few years, what they've done is they've had a guy who's very good in the jackal and turnovers, whether it's Boyd or James Davis, and then they've gone two passes and they've counter-attacked a lot. So, I'm sure that they'll attack more from set piece with Stephen Jones. They'll try and approach. Definitely in the counter-attack. They're looking to counter-attack a little bit more, with Johnny McNichol back there and Josh Adams. So they are, he's not going to reinvent the wheel. He's going to keep the same kind of systems as they did under Warren Gatland, but hopefully add a little bit more of the Pivac style of play, which he's trying to play a little bit more rugby. So fingers crossed, they'll try and attack Ireland if they get a good set piece and quick ball. If you don't, but it's the same as Andy Farrell said. Sometimes, when you try and play too much football too early, international rugby is all about game management now. So you can't put yourself under pressure. You've got to be patient. You've got to play when the ball is on the go, and if it's not on, you've got to kick. So that's why we get a lot of box kicks and high kicks from everyone, because they're trying to get field position and win the aerial battle.
How much do you subscribe to the theory, Jonathan, that the recently departed coach's methods will take a while to actually disappear, that regardless of the fact that Andy Farrell was previously defence coach, there is still a Joe Schmidt ideal ingrained in the brains of these Irish players, and similarly with Gatland and the Welsh players?
I think, I'm not having been involved in either setup, but you do see that they're kind of very, very structured. Now, how long that's going to take for players to adapt to is going to be difficult to see. But I think I do know, especially with Pivac, that he'll try and play a more expansive game. And if there is kind of an opportunity to play it, maybe they won't be as rigid and they won't be in the orders from Gatland. But I think it'll change. They both want to play a little bit more expansively, but unfortunately in this day and age there are structures and the defence is so strong. So it's making, I still think, it's making the right decisions at the right time on when to go. Maybe they'll try and turn defences because the blitz is so, it's so powerful these days with everyone. So, but if you can get a quick ball and a couple of quick passes, you can get on the outside of blitz defences, and that's why I look at Lamore. Lamore could be a huge asset for Ireland, because you've got tremendous pace, and if they they get the blitz wrong and he gets on the outside, you know, he could be the difference on the weekend.
Are Wales missing many players at the moment? I know your namesake is out at the moment, but beyond that, is there a core of this team missing, or is this close enough to full strength?
Well, Jonathan Davies is missing, obviously. Liam Williams is missing. So, you know, if Liam comes back, he plays full back. But apart from that, I can't see many injuries. They're very, very lucky at the moment. Faletau is back, which, you know, he has a lot to, because he is, you know, one of Wales' his best players. Naveed has just picked a hamstring injury, which I'm sure he would have played against Ireland because, you know, his ball carrying ability. You know, he's a very, very good ball carrier and a very powerful player. So, but apart from that, you know, they're in good shape at the moment.
Yeah, I guess the reason I'm asking is because from the team that played last year to the team this year, our team is quite similar. There's a few changes in the back line, some of them through injury that don't really weaken the side. But
no.
I would expect this game to go fairly similarly to last year's game, with Ireland needing to take chances early on to get into it, just to make sure that they don't get blown away the way they were in the first half in particular last year.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I kind of, having watched a lot of the Pro 14, you know, Leinster and Munster and Ulster have been very dominant. And, you know, apart from that game last year, where Wales really took control and they strangled the Irish pack and they kind of nullified, you know, the effect then of the kicking game. They won the aerial battle. So, you know, it is going to be interesting. And I do think, you know, you've got the home advantage. So I wouldn't take much notice out of last year's game, to be honest. You know, Wales played exceptionally well. The conditions maybe helped them a little bit, and I was very surprised how much they dominated the Irish pack, and I can't see it happening. I think again Scrum will be instrumental to see who has the upper hand there. That'll be crucial. But then it's down to the aerial battle. I'm trying to win that aerial battle because Ireland's game is you know, it's so kind of kicking orientated sometimes, and maybe Farrell will try and change that. But I still think it'll be quite a close game, and where the game is played, you know, is going to be crucial.
Do you keep in touch with Andy Farrell much, Jonathan? Obviously, a former teammate of yours for Great Britain.
Yeah, I see him now and again, but you know, he's so busy now, and everyone's so busy, and seems to be getting busier. You know, I don't see him when I'm at the ground when he's out. I'll try and catch up with him, but no, I don't see much of him. He's, you know, these coaches now are 24/7, aren't they? They're embroiled in the game. They watch so much video. You know, it's something. I think you know, it's paralysis by analysis sometimes. So, but you know, he's a great guy. You know, he's very well respected. He's a tremendous player, good rugby brain. He's adapted well. You know, he's been a good under good coaches, and you know, the step up is you know, is good for him. I think he's a great you know, rugby brain.
It seems that people who played alongside him knew that this was a potential path he could have gone down, especially getting that captaincy for Great Britain so soon in his life. Is that something that you spotted as well, playing alongside him?
You know, he played prop for Great Britain when he was 17 years of age, you know, against New Zealand. You know, he's one of the best footballers I've ever come across. He's got a great rugby brain, and I think that, you know, he's got tremendous footballing ability, you know, for the so-called loose. So he's a player who's got a presence about him. He's got an aura about him, and you know, ultimately he's a top bloke as well. So I think, you know, he'll do well for Ireland.
Yeah, I think, Jonathan, that's important. Just that last point, he seems like a good man.
I think that's it. You always want people who are good people, you know, and if he can motivate, it's all down to man management. Everything is man management, and if Andy Farrell can get a little bit more out of those players through good man management. All the best sides I played for have all had, you know, great banter and friendship in the side. So if Andy, you know, brings his personality and gets those players to play, you know, Ireland, you know, will improve.
Jonathan, great to have you with us. Enjoy the game this weekend. Thanks a million.
Yeah, looking forward to it. Cheers, boys. Thank you.
It's Jonathan Davies there. I think it's going to be a close game, closer than last year. They absolutely killed us last year. Like, because it was the Grand Slam game, I don't know if we made enough of it, but it was 25-7, right? And we got the 7 in stoppage time.
83 minutes, as Rory O'Connor said there last night, keeping us scoreless.
Yeah.
I guess the World Cup warm-up game changed that a small bit.
Did it?
Because it's our last time playing them.
We beat them. We played them twice.
When it mattered, they absolutely destroyed us.
Yeah, when there was something on the line.
But the most worrying thing about that was we went into that Wales game thinking to ourselves, we're humming along nicely now. The Aviva Stadium against England, very much an aberration. Now we're back on track. A little bit of a wobble against Italy, but that can happen the week after getting hammered by England. Good performances against Scotland, good performances against France. We are back on track. And then Wales happens, and we're like, oh my God, where are we? Where is this Ireland team at? This is our last game before we get our last test game before the World Cup warm-up matches. Ireland are in a bit of trouble, and it turned out that was not an exaggeration. Ireland were in a bit of trouble. The side that got hammered by Wales, and that sort of performance level is something that popped up a couple of times then when it really mattered later in the year. So it was a sign of doom, and a sign of doom that was yet to come for Ireland. So very positive about this weekend.
What do you think is going to happen this weekend?
I think Ireland are going to get beaten.
Rugby man. Why and how?
Because Wales are actually an excellent side, and has that been lost in the departure of Warren Gatland? Have we associated their success too much with Warren? Perhaps we have. I think that we look at where a lot of these players are playing for their club, and then we see this overperformance relative to that for their country, and we've always put that down to Warren Gatland, the effect that he's had on them when he brings them together in camp. And maybe actually it's just that there has always been this unbelievable spirit in Welsh camps, and that is why this national team is so good.
Well, you go back to Mike Ruddock's time when they won a Grand Slam out of nothing and they threw him out. But I think the key thing about Welsh rugby is that the skill set is so high and is always so high for all of the players coming through, because obviously the way that they're coached from an early age means that they can always play a type of rugby which at any stage in the game can be expansive. So they might have this boring kicking structured game for ages and ages and ages, and then all of a sudden, a bit like Patrick Mahomes, they can drop points on you in a 10-minute spell when the game's over before you even kind of look around. And we don't have that. We have a game of structure that's going to drag you into the deep water and drown you over the period of 90 minutes. And that's why I'm concerned about this game this weekend.
But that's the point we need to get to. That is almost a sign of what Leinster are doing at the moment.
Yeah.
The ability to hammer you up front, if they need to, and throw the ball up the jumper, go for the sticks, whatever you need to do. And then also, activate their tricky wingers and an outstanding fullback in Jordan Armour. Ireland have those players, and they clearly do. And it's about activating that over the next couple of years, because it's been too one-dimensional for a little while. It's been one hell of a dimension, I guess, and it's been hugely successful. But I think that Welsh model is something that Ireland could look at.
All right, 8:32 this morning here. 8:33 just turned on OTB AM. A bit of controversy on last night's news round. Joe, Nathan and Richie power ranked the Six Nations national anthems with some help from Rory O'Connor.
So we're going 7th is Ireland's Call.
Yeah.
Definitely. 6th, Our Own Naveen.
Yes, which leaves us with, the Italian anthem, God Save the Queen, La Marseillaise, O Land of My Fathers, the Welsh anthem, of course. So I think God Save the Queen is next, bottom.
As in? Just for familiarity. So you're putting, sorry, just so we can get this live on air.
Can I have a reminder?
You're putting the English national anthem ahead of the Irish national anthem in anthems you prefer to.
What was it? While you're mentioning office debate.
Oh dear. I'm not sure it's a good idea.
Because there'll be somebody who's just stepped in here.
Hang on. Wait, you're separating the history for a second.
But it is memorable.
It's memorable, precisely.
This bit. That's class.
That's soaring.
DJ, you gotta love that.
Yeah, I'm comfortable saying that's better.
That's the Westlife off the stools moment.
I'm comfortable saying that's better than ours. No? It's separating the...
I would say so. It's certainly more memorable. I can't imagine if there's anybody from outside of Ireland listening.
You've taken the words out of my mouth.
If you were from Poland and you were playing Ireland in a friendly, would you come away going, their national anthem?
And that's if you lived here as a Polish person for the last 10 years, you still wouldn't know. Okay.
What am I working with?
Hang on a second.
Is that official confirmation of you as a West Brit?
Absolutely.
I'd say that'll be the nicest thing said about you.
You agreed with me.
You're the presenter.
You agreed
You're
with
on
me.
your own.
Sorry, I'm not on my own. I'm not on my own. This is us.
That is. Just on
That was bad. That was
how memorable it is.
Okay, right. So, to confirm again, Ireland's called bottom. Aaron Levine second bottom.
No.
God Save the Queen third from bottom. Now it gets tricky. I think Italian. It's that bit too bouncy. It's fantastic.
It is a brilliant anthem. There's just not enough pain in it.
There's no pain.
Where's the suffering?
Yeah, I agree.
This is...
But Jesus.
No, not having it. I think I would have Italy number 1 and France number 2, and then after that you can all go and shite, basically.
Not Scotland, no.
Well,
I like Flower Scotland. I've so Flower Scotland.
I've started with Flower Scotland for singing it drunkenly in pubs for many years, but that's it.
How many of the verses do you know, though? It's like
to send them home, think again. After that,
yeah.
Were they including Aaron Levine, or was it just Ireland's call?
No, Aaron Levine was behind. I mean, sorry.
So both Irish anthems are at the bottom.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I'm not having that either. I think God Save the Queen is one of the great dirges in world history. It's appalling.
It's a shocking song.
Yeah.
It's just a bad tune.
And it'll change now to God Save Our King, which is even worse.
I'm not sure that'll ever happen, to be honest.
You just don't think
she will live forever.
Charles just never getting there.
We'll never
He's
get
gonna
there.
have the world's most unfulfilled life.
For sure. Like, they're both terrible songs, God Save the Queen and Ireland's Call and Aaron Levine, but they would certainly be kind of fighting it out for the bottom, the three of them.
Yeah, absolutely. I thought I'd definitely... Oh, yeah. Who do you go for top? Italy?
The Italian, yeah, I love it. I think it's great.
Marseille is top
France,
for me.
100%.
I mean, look, it's great, but like it's a bit of a cliche to say it's the best. I mean, it is very good, but the Italians, like, are coming for you, baby.
But they never do. They
the
really never do come for you. They're really shit.
Well, their soccer team obviously is the one that.
No, they don't attack either.
It always sounds better in the soccer pitch. Yeah.
And also their food is the best. You power rank the food from the Six Nations.
Are you talking about Six Nations press room food? Or are you talking about Italian food?
Italian food is the best. There is no. I will brook no argument. The shittiest Italian restaurant in Italy, obviously, is like vastly superior to any Scottish, Welsh, most English, half of Ireland, and the majority of French restaurants.
Wow, you're really well travelled.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been to 6 countries.
6 countries.
Including our own. I've even been up the north. I was never been to Belfast.
I have actually. I've had fantastic times in Belfast.
I was going to say, it defines your political leaning there, whether you say 6 or 7 countries in that case, isn't it? Well, remember about the football.
Sure, Shane Lowry won the Open in a different country.
We've already had one West Brit in the studio in the last 24 hours, so...
We started with former Manchester United defender heading Liverpool into the 5th round of the FA Cup last night. Rashawn Williams' comical second-half goal gave a youthful Liverpool side a 1-0 win over League One Shrewsbury at Anfield. With the Liverpool now face Chelsea in round 5, and with the first team on winter break, under-23 coach Neil Critchley was in charge. Critchley says he told the players the incentive for victory was a potential appearance at Stamford Bridge.
Maybe 1 or 2 of you, maybe more, might get an opportunity to go and get another fantastic experience. So they want as many of those experiences as they can, and if they get that chance at Chelsea away, they'll be fully deserved of it.
Newcastle will be away to West Brom in round 5. One particular Newcastle fan may probably not enjoy watching the replay. He got a little overexcited, or as the video on social media would suggest, not excited at all. We can't show the video, it's too bad.
What's he doing?
What?
What's he doing?
He exposes himself during the celebration for the winning goal by Alan Saint-Maximin, scored 4 minutes from the end of extra time to give Stevenage side a 3-2 win away at Oxford, at which point he runs out onto, like, you know, the gangway, like between the emergency thing, and then just, like, gets it out and shakes it about.
Right.
On the BBC before they quickly cut away.
Oh, wow. The poor Beeb, it always happens to the Beeb.
It always like
it's never
the one game of football they show every couple of months.
It's never like you know, one of those like Division 4 matches that Sky have on that literally nobody's watching.
No, Sky probably like hoping for it as well. I mean, but Wayne Rooney, meanwhile, will welcome his former side Manchester United to Pride Park in round 5. He scored from the spot in a 4-2 win over Derby at home to Northampton. Reading will be at home to Sheffield United in the 5th round after beating Cardiff on penalties. That game finished 3-3 after extra time. Birmingham set up a 5th round trip to Leicester, having gotten the better of Coventry on penalties at St Andrews. And the 5th round lineup will be completed tonight. Tottenham entertain Southampton with the winners at home to Norwich City. Kick-off at White Hart Lane at 7:45. Well, Rangers will attempt to keep the pressure on Scottish Premiership leaders Celtic when they face Hibs tonight. Stephen Gerrard's side trailed their old firm rivals by 7 points at the top of the table, but they have played a game less after suffering a dip in form since the winter break. But the Ibrox boss is backing his players to turn things around.
For us, it's important to stick together on the inside, keep doing what we do, keep believing in how we play, and we'll play through this period and get back to our best. Quicker than people believe.
Meanwhile, in rugby, Cian Healy says revenge will not be on his mind against Wales on Saturday. The prop was on the wrong side of a 25-7 loss in Cardiff in last season's Six Nations. Healy was speaking after head coach Andy Farrell named his squad for Saturday's game, showing 2 injury-enforced changes. Henshaw and Mahoney coming into the starting 15, with Earls and Max Deegan set to make his debut from the bench. Only 9 of the starting 15 began the match in Cardiff in 2019, and Healy says it's all about success, not vengeance.
Yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't look back too much on that. I'd like to go in pretty clean slate in my mind, and the motivation for me here is to succeed with this team. I'm not looking for vengeance or revenge or anything like that. I want success with the lads around me. That means going to the well, to the dark place to do what you have to do. That means doing the harder thing than the easier thing, you know. That's probably what will become more enjoyable now. If we come out of the weekend with a win, knowing that I've done that and that I've put myself to that place, and it was myself pushing myself on to do it, not thinking if I don't do it, this will happen again.
You were saying it's 2 forwards.
3 forwards and 3 backs.
3 forwards and 3 backs. Tyburn played.
Tyburn started, yeah. Obviously a couple of retirements. Sean O'Brien
started. Yeah.
Roy Best.
Conan came on for him.
Yeah.
And Roy Best.
In the backs, then
so not a million miles away.
No, Carney, Earls and Ringrose, the 3 that started that are not starting in the backs. Then, so it's pretty similar.
Yeah, and they bullied our pack, which didn't have enough dog in it that day. We can say, right?
No, and like this time last year, absolutely everybody wanted Tyburn to start, and he did.
Yeah, Eoin was asking what is doggedness? The absence of doggedness.
I wasn't asking what. No. There's a bit. I was asking what is.
What is dog?
Dog. That's different from doggedness. I know what doggedness is.
Okay. So
dog is not short for doggedness.
I mean, it kind of is.
Is it? I always think of it. It's just people who are just not afraid to give away penalties. You know, like a bit like friend of the show, Alan Quinlan. Like, you know, as in, like, he would just lie there. Like Lawrence Delalio would just lie there and take an absolute kicking rather than let the ball go away.
Yeah, quickly. See, that's what I would actually agree with. There is cynicism involved in a bit of dog.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I was getting there, but, like, it's the smashing, and sometimes it's legal and sometimes it's borderline. There's, like, it was like the English player crushing Entamac. Like, that was dog, right? Because it was absolutely borderline. Oh, we've had a look at that, it's fine, on you go. As he twists his ACL and stretches it as far as it'll go, leaning all his weight on it. Entamac gets up and goes, I mean, come on, lads.
Just to be perfectly clear here, what Brian O'Driscoll meant is shithousery.
Yeah.
He definitely meant that. Like, that is what he means.
I think so.
I applaud that sentiment. We need more shithousery in Irish rugby.
Yeah, I think, like you see on
the field.
You see against the Scots, and they're just kind of looking to the referee to sort it out. And, like, the Scots were there absolutely like cutting across like the block, and you know, Hogg celebrating, getting like even to see the substitute's face when he knew clearly he'd knocked it on, and Hogg was like jumping up celebrating, like, you really think you're going to trick the TMO here? Like, whereas the Irish players just be like, no, I didn't actually get that down. You can just go for the 5-metre scrum. And you're like,
but like, I mean, who's the real winner there?
Yes, exactly. Rugby is the real winner on, you know, gentleman's game.
Exactly.
Finally, in snooker, there was disappointment for Angels Mark Allen at the World Grand Prix last night. He suffered a first-round exit at the hands of Liang Wenbo, with the Chinese player 4 frames to 2 winner in Cheltenham, and Liang will now play Ronnie O'Sullivan in round 2 tonight.
All right, as Real Madrid, here's the question. Are Real Madrid ready to ambush Pep and Manchester City? Dermot Corrigan told the Football Show that on the ground in Spain, Los Blancos are expected to progress.
So against Real Madrid, a lot of us haven't seen much of Madrid. La Liga has kind of almost gone out of the general ether since it's gone off Sky Sports in some ways. Do you make Madrid favourites to go through against City, Dermot?
Again, I'd be similar. I'd see a bit of City, but wouldn't be watching them every week, whereas I'd be at the Bernabeu. And the feeling here is that Madrid are just coming into form at the right time, and that everybody, especially around Madrid, likes to see Guardiola doing not so well really at the Bernabeu. They're happy enough to see him slipping. So when Mourinho was able to beat Pep at the weekend, as Zidane was able to beat Simeone, there was a real feeling that this game is just coming around at the perfect time for Madrid, that they're clicking into form, while City, maybe the wheels are coming off a bit and they've got some players back from injury. But just the narrative or the momentum at both clubs is going in different directions. So from here in Spain, Madrid are seen as pretty big favourites to be able to knock out City, which they'd be delighted about.
Yeah, what do you think of that?
Well, it's your prediction for the Champions League, Real Madrid to go all the way, not just beat Manchester City.
Do you think they're going to beat Man City, though? That was based on that.
I'm starting to come around to that point of view, for sure. I don't think Manchester City are able to get themselves into a position to just get up for these back-to-back ties. I think it's a huge gulf from going through the motions, which they are doing right now in the Premier League, because they're so far behind, to getting yourself up for the thing that defines this very club right now. This is the thing they need to win. We all know it. They've done their Premier League stint at this point in terms of winning the trophy. The only thing they need to do, the primary objective, and probably the only objective, is win the bloody Champions League. We've given you all the money in the world. We've pumped all this oil money into this football club. You need to go and bring home the Champions League. You can't go from being passive in the Premier League to putting in an effort to win the Champions League, in my opinion. So I'm actually starting to think that Real Madrid will knock them out, but I don't think Real are going to go all the way.
Once they get a bit of
momentum, are you going to use that word?
Once they get a bit of momentum in this competition,
yeah. Because it's a powerful thing, isn't it?
Confidence. Once they get a bit of confidence.
You said momentum.
I did. But if they were to beat Manchester City, you would say they're incredibly dangerous, right? Nobody wants to play them at that stage.
Given the tools they have at their disposal, without a doubt, that's the case. Like since the last round of the Champions League, I'm sure, I don't think I'm mistaken on this, they have overtaken Barcelona in La Liga. I think one of the arguments you could have made in favour of Barcelona at the end of the year is that, well, they're not going great, but they're still top of La Liga. That's actually turned now over the last month or so. So they're in a position that if they get that win against Manchester City, of course they're dangerous.
All right.
Liverpool exist.
Let's move on. Yeah, we'll talk about that again because there's plenty of time. Graham Hunter is with us. Graham, good morning to you. How you doing?
Hi, fellas. Good.
So we've been talking a bit about Real Madrid, but actually we want to talk to you about Barcelona. It seems like a civil war has broken out in the last 24 hours. What the hell's going on?
Yeah, have you seen The Life of Brian?
A long time ago, yeah.
Where the John Cleese character gets a crowd together to stone this fella for saying that his piece of halibut was good enough for Jehovah. It's a hell of a profession we're in, where we crave interviews, and then somebody gives one, and everybody pounces on it and stones it to death. I guess that the reason for the way you introduced that and the way that the front pages of every football paper in Spain are covered in this is the fact that when Eric Abidal gave two interviews, one to Diario Sport and the other one to Mundo Deportivo, published on two separate days, Tuesday and Wednesday, in part of his first interview, he was asked to talk about why Valverde was sacked. And he told the truth. And he used words that have annoyed Leo Messi sufficiently that he used Instagram to post and say, well, when the players don't play well, we take responsibility for it, we admit it, but those in charge of sports planning at the club need to take charge of their tasks and also take responsibility when they don't do well. And it is correctly being read as Messi saying, I'm not particularly happy with the finger being pointed, and Messi makes a good point that in a general answer, Abidal says that he felt that the training sessions weren't hard enough work for the players, and that was down to Valverde's managed stewardship of the training regime and the squad. And Messi said, well, look, if you're saying players, name names, which again is fair. And Messi's final point is that if you don't name names, then everybody's reputation has been tarnished, and the some of the things which are untrue will take wings and fly. And the first point to say about this, lads, is that did everybody who's getting absolutely furious with Abidal right now not watch Anfield or Juventus or Paris or Athletic Bilbao or Granada? But he spoke the truth. Because this sport now, and maybe other sports feel the same, but in football, because this sport now squeezes every last living drop out of any high-quality club and international player, particularly the elite players who do nothing but play high-tension, high-risk club games, and then every single summer, play tournaments now because there's absolutely no rest for these people. And they packed at Football Club Barcelona with Valverde, whether explicitly or it becomes common law. They packed a working regime which keeps them going sufficiently to dominate Spain, because they win the Cup and the League and the Super Cup and then the League again, fail in the Cup final. But, incrementally, the lead figures in European football move past them in terms of intensity, and Barcelona decline a little bit because their working environment is a little bit too gentle, but it keeps them going. And it comes to a stage where that pact fails and Valverde feels burned out and he's sacked. And Abidal talks about that. And if he's misexpressed himself a little bit sufficiently to annoy Messi, that's a story. And as captain and the greatest player that Barcelona have ever had, Messi has the right to reply for sure. This maelstrom of meltdown and use the word civil war, there will be consequences. There'll be finger jabbing for sure. But I think in our profession, it ill behoves us, one, to ignore the fact that Abidal told the truth, and two, we need to be careful across the board, not off the ball, in demanding interviews and criticising people that don't give interviews to the media when once you do, in metaphorical terms, you're stoned to death for liking a plate of halibut.
Yeah, I get exactly what you're saying. I do think, though, that if you provoke Leo Messi to the point where he takes to Instagram and says, you've got to name names because you're casting aspersions on all of us, that it's eminently fixable.
He misexpressed himself, Jerry. He's made a mistake. I agree with you, and I think that Messi is right to say, okay, tell us who wasn't working hard enough. And if you say that in public, you're either going to have to back it up or apologise to the captain. I do agree about that. But when the way in which, first of all, I think that Abidal probably had a responsibility at the end of the transfer market, or at least there's a tradition here that the sports director at the end of a given transfer market does hold a sort of state of the nation, and he chose to do so with the two Catalan papers rather than a big press conference. That's all pretty normal, and he's spoken inappropriately in a phrase. Might Messi have gone and seen him and said, don't like what you did there, here's my point of view, take that part back? I'd have thought that would have been the right way for two ex-teammates to handle it. I don't think Messi is, first of all, irrespective of the fact that he's given us, he's given us such joy, and he's given all of us extra work and extra freedom to express ourselves. Messi over the years, the lottery win of being a broadcast journalist for all of us in his lifetime is extraordinary. I don't think it makes him immune, though. And I think that when I saw Suarez and Messi hands on haunches in the 40th minute at Camp Nou against Liverpool, breathing out, in and out, because they were like, what's happened here? Why can't we keep up with these men in red, even though they're missing key players? And it was something that we'd seen before in Paris and in Turin, and now we're seeing in Granada and at Levante and at San Mamés. This point has to be dealt with. It is absolutely clear that Valverde was popular with Suarez and with Messi, amongst others. And if the club sacks a manager like that and brings in somebody who is radically different in his approach to daily work, there will be tensions. And I think it's healthy that these themes are squeezed out. I think it's a little bit daft that it's come to a head in public.
Yeah. Yeah, I wonder about that. So that's the thing, really, isn't it? That we know about it. Like, to spool back and just explain to everybody, what is Abidal's job? So, as the sporting director, what has he got ultimate responsibility for? Is it his job to make sure that the squad is big and growing and that the manager is doing his job? Can you just briefly explain for a bit of context in case anybody's unfamiliar?
He's called technical secretary. And if I were to explain to you fundamentally exactly what his role is, then we'd only really have known since Sunday, because Abidal was sufficiently unclear about the extent of his power and responsibility that after the weekend game, the win against Levante, where Messi set up 2 goals for Ansu Fati to beat a Levante side who could easily have drawn or won at Barcelona for the first time in their history, Abidal had to go and see President Bartomeu and say, with Ramon Planes, not his rival, but Ramon Planes and he are in an area of planning for the squad, who to promote from the youth side, how to sell, at what price, who to buy, how to scout. And neither of them was completely clear about who had the mandate, who was in charge. So, Football Club Barcelona, we've had many discussions on this show about how badly they're managing youth development, how badly they buy, how badly they sell, and the fact that there was a gradual decline over the years, and it was very notable, even though they were able to dominate Spain. Eric Abidal wasn't fully clear about the extent of his responsibilities until the end of this weekend. But in broad terms, he is the guy who admits in his interview, we knew this, recommended to President Bartomeu that Valverde's time was up, a decision that began to be taken after the Clásico. That's the first time that's emerged, 0-0 in late December. He makes it clear that they spoke to, we know that the job was offered to Xavi, that it was offered to Ronald Koeman, that it was offered to Pochettino before Kiki Setien took over. In the interview, Abidal makes it clear that there were a couple of other coaches they spoke to too, which kind of bumps Kiki Setien, the current coach, down to about 6th, on the list of the guys they wanted to take over. They ain't doing particularly well. They've tied their shoelaces together in so many different aspects of the running of this club. But fundamentally, in what Abidal was pointing out, I believe that there was a clear truth. Nobody was swinging the lead at Football Club Barcelona's training ground. Nobody was lying in the gym working off a hangover like Ronaldinho used to. What happened is you had players who won everything, whose drive was keeping them going, whose salaries were keeping them going. Let's not ignore that. But they thought that they could pack a way to work that wasn't as intense as Real Madrid are working now, as Liverpool have been working for some significant time, as, say, Paris Saint-Germain, Bayern Munich, Juventus work. And that consensus that they sought out was good enough to keep them dominant in Spain, but insufficient to stop them falling behind in Europe. And therefore, I think action had to be taken. Whether Valverde was the right candidate to be sacked, or whether changing some of the old guard of the squad, who've now got massive long contracts, would have been the way forward, that's a different debate. But I still believe that Messi could have chosen to go directly to Abidal and thrash it out, and then decided whether he needed to speak publicly or not, which is entirely his right. I just think that it was a bit peremptory to go, oh, hold on, I'm not happy, and you've said something a bit mean, and I'm Instagram.
Yeah, so why did he do that then? Is there, because there's a story knocking about from El Pais about a potential break clause in his current deal, and we've been speculating
not potential, Jared.
So it exists.
It's confirmed that at the end of every season from now to the end of his contract, and indeed last summer, he can leave for free if he chooses to. No other whys and wherefores. It's entirely within his own decision powers to leave Barcelona for no fee.
So, bear that in mind. Add in the fact that he could have gone privately and sorted this out, and all of a sudden we've got a story. We certainly there's questions. Why is Leo Messi?
Story everywhere. Correct.
So, is Leo Messi going to leave this summer?
It's a power play. I think that I've written extensively about that fact for, do pardon me, ESPN. And, you know, the first piece of logic, which you're good on at the show, is that you don't put the clause in the contract if it's never going to be used. It's there for a reason. It might be there as an emergency parachute if the plane's going down, but right now they have engine trouble. I would have said to you that the likelihood is that Messi feels that he can catalyse an early election. The elections are due in 2021. That's obligatory because the president's mandate will be up then. I feel that what Messi wants to do is catalyse a situation whereby change is imminent, which may or may not benefit him because the incoming president is very much a Xavi man, is very much anti the current board. But will the regime be as friendly and easygoing as Valverde's was? I don't know. Who would the coach be if Xavi doesn't come yet? I don't know. And further still, it is this board's and Eric Abidal's avowed intention to bring Neymar to Messi this summer. Now, whether they can achieve that or not, they didn't try particularly hard last summer. I know it's their absolute number one intention, something that Abidal speaks about in his Mundo Deportivo interview today. Normally, that would have been headlines. It's been a little bit submerged by other events. And Paris Saint-Germain, when they read today's interview, will not be happy about the way that Abidal speaks about their player.
There was one other story that I wanted to mention. Is there anything else about this that you think that we should talk about before?
Yeah, well, number one, Abidal's been called to an emergency meeting with the president this afternoon. Bartomeu was out of town. He's coming back. You know, it's not out with the bounds of possibility that either Abidal is forced to apologise and clarify today, or potentially loses his position. Watch this space today and tomorrow. This isn't a slow burner. This is.
Is this rolling news on all the Spanish TV channels at the moment? It's like, ooh, is it?
Yeah, it's big style over here because they do like a little bit of hysteria. There'll be a lot of shouting and finger jabbing on television shows today and tonight.
That sounds great.
Yeah, yeah. I'm going to use that. I'm going to take that as a euphemism. Yeah.
Yeah. There was a few lines in one of the English papers today about the fact that Atletico Madrid are just having some thoughts about maybe potentially, because they're not going so well at the moment, that maybe Diego Simeone's time is up and they're looking at Mauricio Pochettino. This might be a Pochettino agent story who's planted it. I don't know, but. Is there a possibility Diego Simeone is suddenly available on the market this summer?
It depends what you mean by available. I think he can't go to England. I think it would be inadvisable. He's tried hard to learn English and he can't do it. The first offer that he had from England was from Chelsea in the season that they knocked Chelsea out of the Champions League semi-finals, which must have been 13-14, when they reached the final two Madrid the first time and lose again. Inter or Lazio or Juve, I could see. Yes, things are a little bit difficult at Atleti. Everything that were strengths are now not. They don't score set plays. They don't log up 1-0s. They concede more in half a season from set plays than in all of their other seasons at the end of term. Mono Burgos is brilliant and not only his brilliant assistant, but somebody who's played with for his Atleti career and somebody who's the organizer tactically. You know, Cholo Simeone was very much the man-to-man sports psychologist, leader. Mono Burgos was his very important right-hand man about the specifics. Their paths are diverging and their relationship doesn't seem to be as fruitful. Professor Ortega, their once renowned and considered brilliant fitness coach, is a man who halfway through last season, Simeone said, hadn't prepared the squad properly. He's still there. They're in the midst of a brutal injury crisis. And I don't mean impact injuries. I mean a constant series of muscle strains that have decimated his squad. They have significant problems at Atleti, irrespective of the fact that he must have earned them about 400 million euros with his European exploits over the 9 years he's been there. Currently, they're looking up at fourth place and thinking, are we going to get there? So it's fair to say that Simeone's position at Atleti, either by his own volition or the club's, is definitely under question. If Pochettino ends up at Atleti rather than Manchester United or Real Madrid or Manchester City, then I'll raise an Ancelotti eyebrow at that.
Okay. There's one other question you wanted to ask about Guardiola?
Well, I just think that would be an absolute disaster for Manchester United to let Mauricio Pochettino slip through the cracks if he were to go to one of those clubs. On Pep Guardiola, this is kind of an interesting element to the last week, Graham, where he's kind of done a bit of a callback to Richard Scudamore's comments a few years ago about how Manchester City's dominance of the Premier League isn't good for anybody, it's not good for English football. And then, of course, Liverpool will go 22 points clear. And he's saying, well, perhaps this isn't good for English football either, seeing this new club come along and dominate the Premier League like so. This is, I'm not sure, is this usual from Pep Guardiola? Have we seen him kind of lose his grip on the dominance of a league before? We haven't really. So I guess he's kind of in newfound territory where a small few sour grapes are coming out.
No. Absolutely the opposite. If Catalonia ever got independence and the Olympics introduced a medal for sarcasm, Pep would be like 50 times gold medal winner from now to the end of his life. He's an extremely competitive, grudge-bearing, not volatile, but rancorous man. He stores these things up. I'm not saying he's thin-skinned, but he's competitive in the same way as Alex Ferguson was. Now, how many times did Fergie store something up and then in one way or another, particularly when a perceived rival was struggling or on their knees, suddenly you get bang from Fergie just like that. Pep's cut from the same cloth. Whether he means it, that it's bad for Liverpool, it was just like when Scudamore said that, that's been noted down in what Jack Charlton used to call a little black book, and Pep's waited for a moment where he can go, there you go, fella, right back at you.
Is he going to stick around for the rebuilding process at Man City, do you think?
Yeah. What, with Messi? Is that what you're asking?
Well, I mean, look, wouldn't that be a good story?
Yeah, look, I've one, to say to you categorically what Pep Guardiola's going to do at the end of the season is a fool's game, because he's extremely hard to predict. He's quite eclectic in his attention span and his decision making. But one thing has been consistently true of him: when he says something in public about his objectives or his desires or his honour, usually he means it. So I'm taking it when he says he wants to be there to the end of his contract, and might add another one. I think on the point of delivery of that message, I think he means it. Are things perfect behind the scenes? Is he as harmonious with Chicky Begiristain over the work done to plan the squad? No, there's been some crispy moments. But as we stand, if there aren't great changes, I'd say you've got about a 60-40 that, yes, he's there for the length of his contract. Guaranteed? No, but if somebody's trying to sell that there's a big conspiracy and Pep's decided that he's definitely off, then no. But is Mauricio Pochettino specifically watching that situation? I know from extremely good sources that, yes, he thinks he's got a chance there at the end of the season. So, Owen, your comment about Manchester United, it isn't just related to Atleti or whatever. If United... It's funny how Barca are the crisis club, and at least they don't have Ed Woodward in charge of anything. If United need, in your view, Pochettino, then they better do a better job of showing him it than they did to Pep Guardiola when he was at Bayern Munich and he wanted to go to Old Trafford. Have they learned the lesson, dudes? That's what I'm asking you.
Unlikely. They also missed out on Klopp as well. Graham, great stuff. Thanks a million.
Adios.
Graham Hunter giving us some thoughts on the scenario that is breaking and rolling news in Spain at the moment, where Leo Messi is unhappy with the interviews that Eric Abidal, the technical secretary, as we've just found out, has given over the last 48 hours or so. It is 8 minutes past 9 this morning. We're going to take a quick break. Back after this.
OTB AM. This is OTB Sports Radio.
Off the Ball 2019 IMRO Radio Awards Sports Programme of the Year.
Salah takes the shot. Oh, Mo Salah with one of the goals of the season.
Who
will see their dreams turn into reality, whose names will be etched in history forever.
Offtheball.com, best online publisher at the 2019 Spider Awards.
A big breaking story on offtheball.com for you this morning. We have the very latest on the Mayo leaks. We now know what went on in that secretive Mayo County Board meeting.
2019 Irish Sponsorship Awards Best Radio Sponsorship, OTB Super Value GAA Roadshows.
Well, when she comes back, get your arse back here, he said. Star is out sitting on the swing and Darren O'Sullivan is pushing him.
OTB Sports Radio, live online 24/7 on the Go Loud app.
This is OTB Sports Radio. OTB AM.
So Judy, a fellow Meath woman.
Yeah.
So you swapped the GA for the rugby?
Yeah.
Is that the case?
Yeah, like I've been playing both now for maybe 10 years. So it came to a point where I was with Meath, with the Meath seniors, and I was kind of nearly coming from Meath training to rugby training, and it was just getting in the way, especially with injuries. Like it's two physical sports.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of put all the eggs in one basket and went along to rugby.
And so you're enjoying it so far. You made your cap there in November, wasn't it?
Yeah, first cap. So hopefully, I hope to feature anyway during the Six Nations. You know, we've a very tough kind of selection process. There's a lot of girls come back from injury and then experienced players in the second row. So I'm still learning. Like from a lot of them, they give me pointers week in, week out. So definitely, I want to build to the future anyway. If it's not the Six Nations, hopefully during the summer.
Brilliant. And so they were on a training camp. You couldn't go yourself. You have an injury at the minute. How's that?
Yeah, fully back training last week, so hopefully up for selection now going on. The girls have been going away, they've been away in Wales, then they've been doing training camps back home in Dublin, and like you can see today, like we're just showing the amount of stuff that we're doing, the amount of time we're getting together, we're really kind of executing stuff, and yeah, our main focus is kind of just keeping the intensity up.
And you see in that panel, it must be very, very tough for places.
Yeah, like I'm just looking at second rows at the moment. You know, Aoife and Nick and Ciara Cooney played great games today. So, look, I think we're kind of in the environment where you're not jealous of there's no kind of sourness or toxic there. You know, I'm delighted that they played well. And it would be the exact same if I went out there next week. So, yeah, no, we all support each other.
Brilliant, exciting times ahead. Thanks a million.
Yeah, thanks very much.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Judy Bobbitt there speaking with Aisling O'Reilly after Ireland got off to a winning start against the Scots in Donnybrook's Energia Park on Sunday. They play Wales this weekend on Sunday, also at Energia Park in Donnybrook in their second Six Nations game.
It is time to rank the most annoying rugby fans in the world, because why not? We're going to rank from 9 to 1. We're doing the Six Nations and the traditional Tri-Nations, because who cares about Argentina or Japan, to be quite honest with you. In at number 9 of the most annoying rugby fans, so the least annoying in this list, is Italy. I've never once in my life met an annoying Italian rugby fan. Now, the main reason for this is that I've never met an Italian rugby fan. Still, never bugged me. Great people. At number 8, a little bit more annoying than them, are the French. Very easy to stomach in recent years because their team has been shite. Snooty, yes. Pompous, yes. Egotistical, God, yes. But they've got such a high opinion of themselves that they actually don't bother taking it out on anybody else and turning into annoying supporters. So well done to everybody in France. Ahead of France, at number 7, is Australia. The annoyance of Australian rugby, for me anyway, is hampered hugely by the fact that as Australian Rugby Union fans are going extinct, to be quite honest with you. Like, how annoying was the dodo, I ask you? Like, we'll never know, because we're not old enough to know. How annoying were Australian Rugby Union fans? Maybe ask your granddad and he'd give you a better, honest appraisal of that. And number 6, just ahead of Australia, is Ireland. The land of saints and scholars, of course, bringing boundless intelligence to every rugby conversation. All around great, great fans. Ahead of Ireland then, at number 5, we've got Scotland, who would likely be insufferable if they were better at rugby. The kills wandering around Temple Bar at the moment are amusing. Cute, actually, I would go as far as to say. But if they start beating Ireland on a regular basis, they will become the most annoying pieces of clothing ever invented. Ahead of Scotland, at number 4, we've got Wales. Now, personally, I've got no gripe with the Welsh. They have, of course, got the most annoying accent ever invented, but I'm 90% sure that they're just being ironic with that accent, and I'm pretty sure that they're just being ironic with their sense of confidence as well, because nobody from Wales can naturally have that sense of confidence about themselves, I would have thought. Number 3, is New Zealand. Now, here's the issue with New Zealand. They're situated so far away from literally everything else that when they come into contact with a rugby fan from any other country, they just cannot help themselves. And it's not rubbing it in your face, it's not pounding their chest, that sort of arrogance. It's worse than that. It's the sort of, coming to Dublin saying, hey, Mr. Irishman, you did a great job of beating us in 2018, well done. It's kind of like, hey, Mr. Irishman, you got really good at rugby, well done on that. And it's like, hey, you've swept that shed really well over there, well done on that. So it's worse than arrogance, I would go as far as to say. But nothing on number 2, which is England. So England, now it is of course their football fans who fly the flag, but it doesn't mean that their rugby fans aren't also insufferable. Their rugby fans don't throw around plastic chairs, but they do throw around Swing Low, the worst song about sports or anything that's actually ever been written. It's terrible, and they can only get past whatever one verse and then they restart it, and just all-round arrogance to even suggest that is a suitable song to sing in a stadium, to be quite honest with you. Number 1, South Africa. Big, brash, patriotic as hell. I have this theory, you can recognise a Springbok fan if you mysteriously find someone that looks like a tight head prop standing outside the stadium rather than inside the stadium, usually singing their national anthem even outside the stadium. All their conversations take place in the air of this rural scream. So I would encourage everybody to just tone it down if they're from South Africa. Unbelievably arrogant fans and annoying.
No qualms with South Africa number 1, just because I would have England way down. I think the English rugby fans are actually really good. You go to Twickenham, you have a good time, irrespective of whether or not you win or lose. It's just a nice environment. People cooking, roasting a roll in their gardens and selling them. That's very nice. I would have the Scots. I mean, again, it's kind of that we always beat them, so it's kind of irrelevant. The Aussies, they can be a little bit cocky. That's just like a natural state they have. It's like I would definitely have them a bit higher up the road. But the Welsh, for me, I mean, imagine being the only country in the world that actually wants to be a part of England after being colonised by them. That's like, they're choosing to limp it like stick to England. They have a Prince of Wales who's actually English. It's like, come on. I'm sorry, but no, not having them.
So Wales number 2 for you?
Yeah.
I don't know. I think this is the correct list, and I'm sure we're not going to get any views whatsoever.
The Irish could be a bit higher up that list too, right?
Oh, great! We're great.
I mean, the Irish could be like number 3.
We're flawless.
Are they? Getting up and getting down, getting up and getting down, going for a drink, coming back. Oh, what's the score? What happened? How did that happen?
Fields.
I mean, yeah. Well, I don't mind the Fields. I think Swing Low is a brilliant, amazing, soulful song of the South, of America. I think that a bunch of white folks singing it in a rich, posh part of London, probably a little bit culturally insensitive. So maybe they go back up the list for that.
Possibly. But for me, they're down.
That the end of your power rankings?
That is the end.
Right. Hashtag OTB AM for your thoughts on Eoin's power rankings of annoying rugby fans. And let's move on. Back to the top 5 stories today. Jack Grealish to Manchester United. The same headline. Greel deal. It seems like Ole Gunnar Solskjaer has decided that he wants, whether or not he's going to be making these decisions and whether or not it's actually going to be him who gets the benefit of signing him. This would be good for Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's legacy. Jack Grealish is indeed the real deal when it comes to the Premier League. He's only going to get better and better. I think that if Villa can stay 1 season more in the Premier League, they'll get another season out of Grealish and they'll be able to try and build a team around him. But if they don't, if they go down, then I don't think any Villa fans would really begrudge Grealish leaving at that point. He went down with them, he went back up with them, he dragged them up, he did his very best as the leader of the team to try and keep them in the division. And if they go down, I say, off you go and make your money.
He's 24, so
perfect time.
It's time for him to go get that big contract somewhere, to go play Champions League football somewhere. I think Manchester United, he's the perfect signing for Manchester United to make it happen. I think James Maddison is close to signing a new contract with Leicester, so that would mean United possibly won't get their hands on him.
I think that just means they have to pay more.
Possibly. They're sick of paying over the odds at this point, and Jack Grealish should probably be a cheaper option.
Listening to Daniel Harris yesterday, though, it sounded to me a bit like himself and Bruno Fernandes were going to be playing in similar areas. Like, if you sign Jack Grealish, you definitely need that Fred or McTominay defensive midfielder to suddenly turn into N'Golo Kante.
Exactly, or turn into Fernandinho, more like, to be honest, because those two midfielders are kind of like, they're attacking midfielders, really, and you've got your advanced eights and then your deep-lying midfielder just has to stay there, really. He can make his lung-busting run forward if he wants to, but his primary goal needs to be able to defend. And like Fernandinho can play centre-back, you almost need a midfielder there who can play centre-back, who has the athleticism and who has the passing ability to play midfield, but who can also has those defensive capabilities. That is a new signing. That is not somebody that Manchester United have in their squad. So for them to complete this triangle in midfield, they probably do need 2 new players in.
Well, and so that's the point. You sell Pogba and you hope that Jack Grealish takes half of what Pogba was on, and you sign somebody else with the rest of the money that you save from selling Pogba.
Yeah.
But you're not going to get Jack Grealish for less than 50 million, are you, at this point?
Maybe not. But like the knock-on effect of this on Manchester United is that, like, do you go one step forward and look at the fact that perhaps their central area defence isn't the strongest at the moment, and is one holding midfielder enough? Like, do they actually need 2 men sitting in front of that defence, and therefore there's only room for one?
You're assuming that they're signing 2 midfielders and a centre back, right?
Yeah.
That like it's a completely reconstituted team, and then you still don't have enough firepower up front to compete at the top of the table.
Probably not. No, you don't have number 9 anyway.
Martial, and unless Jack Grealish plays as one of those 3, and it's like a completely different team.
But you still need to sign that midfielder.
He's the guy in the right wing. Well, yeah, you do. Say you keep Pogba and you turn him into somebody who is committed, and you sign Grealish. And so you've got Pogba and Fernandes in midfield. Grealish goes as one of the 3 up front alongside Lingard and, is it Martial? It probably is, isn't it?
Lingard.
Sorry, not Lingard.
Rashford.
Rashford and...
Daniel James? Like, what's your...
Maybe it's Daniel James, and so Martial's a sub. That's fine. And it's probably the perfect scenario for him. Kick up the hole, might get a bit of activity out of him. Can you do that?
You possibly can. I'm sure, though, if you're going to sign Jack Grealish, maybe you actually get forced into playing him in an area that you feel you're weak in, rather than playing Jack Grealish in the area that will get the best out of Jack Grealish. But I do think that if you have himself and Bruno Fernandes behind an attack that involves Rashford, Daniel James in his second season with Manchester United, and another, you've got yourself a fairly good attack. It's just the problem is that's half the work. Like, I just wouldn't... Like, McTominay has a big future as the Fernandinho in a Premier League, a title-chasing team. Even just saying that out loud kind of seems ridiculous. That McTominay can be that Fernandinho type, or that can't be that...
Like, he's a young player who's come through the ranks at Man United, who's made it against all of the best young footballers in the world to make it this far. Like, you've got to say that the potential for him to continue to grow in the right coaching environment should be huge.
But maybe he's that like Darren Fletcher type who like should have been developing alongside a Roy Keane type in midfield. Like Bruno Fernandes and Jack Grealish, actual by-the-book midfielders anymore. They're actually more number 10s, but they're kind of advanced 8s. Like you're kind of getting into dense sort of differences between 2 positions there. But I just think you kind of get isolated a little bit if you're that one midfielder who is holding back and looking after that already suspect defence. And I think if you're Scott McTominay, I don't think you have that in your skill set. I think he can be a quality Manchester United player, but I think in that system, perhaps not.
Maybe in 18 months' time, he can have the responsibility, but to thrust everything on his shoulders right now... Look, if it's McTominay, Grealish and Bruno Fernandes, that's not strong enough and experienced enough just yet, is it? Like, you would want Pogba and the other 2, and you'd be like, all right, well, if Pogba's going to do his job the way he did for France...
which is giving McTominay a dig out.
In the World Cup. Mm-hmm. Like, you don't play McTominay. Yeah. He's a sub. You rotate him in and he gets like 15 starts over the course of the season in a load of games.
So you're saying Bruno Fernandes, Grealish and Paul Pogba as your midfield?
Yeah.
And a 3 up front? I think...
Super attacking, obviously. And
they're the people who draw the boxes on the Sky Sports touchpad. Be like, look at all this massive area here behind the Manchester United midfield as teams counter-attack and kill them.
Pogba and Fernandes and like Grealish gets back a lot. And like, he's happy to pick the ball up off your defenders, and your defenders suddenly have a lot of responsibility. It's probably not going to happen. A few bits of news coming through this morning. Christian Eriksen has been complaining to the BBC about being treated as a black sheep during his final months at Spurs. He says he did have conversations with Manchester United as well. If you have a short contract, you'll be the black sheep. Of course, I did the interview. I was very honest. I felt I had to be honest. I didn't want to hide like a lot of players do. Everyone is different. I was honest. I wanted to say it out loud. I did get the blame for a lot of stuff for being the bad guy. I read I was the bad person in the changing room, that ever since I said I wanted to leave, it was no good me being there. To be honest, over the last few years, if anything came up, any player would think about leaving. But I was the guy who said it publicly.
Christian Eriksen, national hero, is that what he's suggesting?
Yeah, pretty much.
Bravery personified in Christian Eriksen.
Spurs Southampton tonight, obviously. Does winning the cup, is that, I mean, it's a trophy. Trophies seem to matter in Jose Mourinho's world, and they seem to matter in, like, they certainly mattered for Louis van Gaal. It didn't seem to make any difference in the long run.
I think, of course, trophies matter.
Well, winning the FA Cup, Arsenal colonised the FA Cup for a long period of time. It didn't really matter.
It colonised recently, as in doing back-to-back titles.
Yeah. And how did that impact the legacy of Arsene Wenger?
Pretty well, actually.
Does it?
Yeah, because that was the thing that was thrown out about him, is like, oh, it's been years and years and years since you've actually won a trophy, because they bottled a couple of Premier League title chases, they lost a couple of Carling Cup finals, and then they'd come back and they'd actually won a couple of FA Cups. Like, it's certainly no bad.
It's no bad thing, but
it's not no bad thing. It's a good thing. It is definitely a good thing, and it's a very good thing. And I think Jose Mourinho gets castigated for talking about his trophies, but that's because he includes like the Community Shield and stuff in his.
So maybe if Spurs win the cup, it's important, is what you're saying?
Yes.
I mean, maybe in Spurs' situation, it's a sign that they're clinging to the coattails of the top teams.
Like, not everything is about commercial value in football anymore. Sometimes trophies do matter. Of course, like, finishing the top four is more important, and like, being able to sign the best players and having loads of Instagram followers is important. But winning the FA Cup is actually kind of important too. If they manage to go out and do that this season, I think that's an excellent start for Jose Mourinho. You got a top four finish to that, then it's an outstanding season. However, would I sacrifice the top four for winning the FA Cup? The answer is no.
Because like Arsenal eventually ended up doing that, really, ultimately, and they've fallen apart as a club ever since. The cup wins were like these weird sticking plasters on this giant cancerous tumour. It's like, that's not really a good treatment for cancer.
I would, like, midway through that sentence I was going to say, well, you'd be thankful for the plasters, like, but it's like, I don't know, it's a strange situation there that that didn't turn into something better. Like, not that the cup win should turn into something better, but I think you're exaggerating it a small bit. I think that
just it's irrelevant. In terms of the, like, okay, so yeah, in and of itself, it's supposed to be something you can celebrate. And I'm sure there were good days. There were 2 good days that Arsenal had, right?
Mm-hmm.
But that was it. You can't draw any conclusions. You can't suggest that this is... Hey, Mourinho's had an immediate impact on the squad. Things are going to get better. Next year, they're going to be able to compete in the league because he wins these 3 games in the cup from this point forward.
Like, who knows? Like, what did you achieve with your first season in charge, Mr. Mourinho? Well, I won the FA Cup. Like, it's something that the players say to themselves. It is a sign of having a medal in your back pocket. And for Tottenham to go out and win a trophy, it would be a huge thing. Like, I can't overstate it enough. And I think that the Arsenal decline might have happened, maybe not quicker, but it was going to happen anyway. And it's a sideshow, definitely a sideshow.
They would have got rid of him quicker, wouldn't they? Did they give him a stay of execution?
Possibly, yeah.
Fugazi Football says Spurs are always slated for not winning silverware. Winning an FA Cup for them in his first season would pretty much give him part hero status.
Yeah, like, maybe hero's a bit strong, I think. But I think that you definitely go into next season with a lot more hope if you won the FA Cup. And it may be an illusion, but hope can sometimes be a strong enough thing, even if it's just for the confidence of some of these players who haven't managed to get their hands on any silverware yet.
There's some comment from some French people about the list that... so Andy McGeady was listening to the show last night and put up his list of favourite songs. He has the Welsh first, France second, Scotland third, Italy fourth, Aaron Levine fifth, and England sixth. And a French guy has got in touch to say, "C'est vrai, tu as raison. It's true, you're right. It was a song in honour of Louis XIV and his..." And then it's fistule anal. And the translation from Microsoft is fistula, and they haven't translated the anal, which looks a bit like anal to me, but my French isn't that strong, so...
Well, I would encourage that texter to get in touch just to clarify.
Oh. Seems to be like something to do with a prostate exam, according to the images that have come up from the Google search.
Yeah, reliable YouTubers, YouTube commenters strike again, I guess. That's all you can really say.
Anal fistula is exactly what it is. I don't even know what a fistula is. So
the French national anthem, eh?
I think that might be the Italian, is it? Did the French wrote... Oh, the English. Sorry, they wrote the English as well. Did they write the English?
Don't quite know. Are you Googling away there to try and find an answer to your own question there?
We'll come back to that one. And then the last point is that Liam Williams, we kind of expected not to be available this weekend, but it's been confirmed this morning that his ankle injury has ruled him out of the game against Ireland, and so he won't be part of the squad. It was touch and go whether or not he'd be travelling to Dublin, but yesterday it emerged the ankle injury is still affecting him. He's struggling at the moment. Byron Hayward said it's too early. We're looking at the 4th and 5th game of the championship for him to be available. And then the other thing that came out yesterday was that the London games next year, Jacksonville Jaguars are going to have 2 back-to-back games in London. First time that's happened.
This is our first step towards the franchise actually moving to London.
Well, you think about a 16-game season, how many home games do you have? You've got 8 home games, just to do the maths for you there really quickly. 2 games out of 8 is 1 quarter. 25% of their season is going to be in London next year.
Yeah.
That's quite a lot.
It is.
So they should just make the decision and say, we're doing this now, everybody. Last chance. Anybody, if there's anybody here who knows why this marriage should not continue, speak now or forever hold your peace.
What do the fans of franchises that move tend to do? Do they tend to follow them? Like,
I think no. I think there's like that's like a bit creepy. You know, your ex dumps you. What do? Do you follow her?
I don't mean actually physically follow. I mean, like maintaining your colours. If you live in Florida right now, and the Jaguars are your Floridian NFL team of choice,
you just move to Tampa
do you then
Bay
become London
Dolphins.
Jaguars fan? Are you so aligned to the Jaguars, or are you so aligned to Jacksonville?
Do you just pick, is there a nearby college team that might be better,
or just support Tampa or Miami or something?
Yeah, you've got options. I think that. Like, the issue with the Jags was that people were going to the games and sitting in hot tubs and...
Oh, it's an amazing looking stadium.
Yeah.
They should 100% build hot tubs in Wembley or wherever they're going to...
See what happens.
Or the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium.
Newcastle.
Yeah, put it in Wembley and then see what happens to the hot tubs when England football play their first home game there. Should be interesting.
Anybody concerned a little bit about the post-Brexit England fans coming to Temple Bar for an England quarter-final?
No, sure, we were watching Sean Whelan on RT News there the other night, and it looks perfectly fine. Definitely going to be no issue.
Is there any way we can not let them travel?
We've got an outbreak of terrifying disease, specifically in all our airports where you can't fly into.
Except unless you're like a Portuguese fan or a...
Yes, sorry, yeah. It can't... People who are members of the EU have been vaccinated against it. The vaccine has just come out last week. Sorry, you actually don't have it, so you can't travel.
I think it's pretty exciting. There's going to be an NFL team in London. It's a good thing. Those games will all be on at times that we can watch.
It's great, but
they might get a Super Bowl.
Yeah, it is a bit unfortunate. Because they have played West Coast teams in London before.
Yeah.
Where they have to get up at to start watching their football team at 6 a.m. It's a bit ridiculous. Is that it?
You get to live in California or Seattle, so life isn't that bad for you.
But it rains all the time in Seattle. So
I'm
didn't the Seahawks play in?
Not crying any tiny tears for you. I don't remember the Seahawks. I definitely remember the Niners did play a game.
Raiders played again, didn't
they? The Raiders played, and I think the Rams have played too. So, right. That's all we got time for this morning on Wednesday's OTB AM. Thanks very much for joining us. Off the Ball's going to be back in your radios tonight from 7 o'clock. You can subscribe to the OTB AM podcast, and we timestamp it so you can just flick through if there's any specific bits that you don't want. Today we had Bernard O'Byrne and Basketball Ireland's stance on the FAI and trying to chase meetings with the government that they couldn't get, which was a fairly remarkable outcome. Jonathan Davies talking to us about Welsh rugby and Andy Farrell, the sports pages and top 5 stories, and football with Graham Hunter. If you missed anything, you can get us on YouTube as well, where you can cast the show to your smart TV. We're back tomorrow morning with the Shot Clock with Kieran Donaghy, Michael Brick Walsh, and we're going to continue our build-up to the 2020 Six Nations. Best of luck.
OTB AM. This is OTB Sports